So in this video, we're just going to discuss the tempo, which basically means the speed of the movement. It can be a little bit confusing to understand, but hopefully after this video, you feel like you have a greater understanding of it. So the point of the tempo is to understand, well, how fast should you go in the movement? And why that is important is because in some exercises, the goal is to maximize the mechanical load of the actual local muscle. And if you go too quick, then you'll end up getting a cardiovascular effect rather than an actual local muscle effect. So that's why the tempo may be important. You'll notice the first thing I have noted is what kind of level that tempo applies to. So if it says all levels, 2, 0, 1, for example, that would mean level 1, level 2, and level 3 all have the same speed or tempo that we're working at. The 2 is always the lowering phase of the movement. So if I was going into a squat, for example, or a hinge movement, so something like one of these here, think of it as being the down phase. So as I sit my hips back towards the wall behind me, that would be the down phase. Or if I'm going into a squat, then obviously going down towards the ground, that would be that phase. So what we're saying there is we want you to go for 2 seconds. The 0 would mean that there is no period in the middle that you'd be holding or pausing. And then the 1 second would mean that on the way up from the movement, so to return to the start position, that's how long we want you to go for there. So in this case of the hip thrust, for example, it would be about 1 second. So you would see this as a 2 second down period in the hip thrust, no pause at the bottom, and then a drive up for 1 second, so for a little bit more speed. Now, in some cases, once again, you'll notice that each level, depending on the exercise, will have a slightly different purpose. A perfect example is level 2, where I've given you the eccentric push-up. I've said here 400. What that means, eccentric means that we're only doing the lowering phase of the push-up, and therefore we want to emphasize that phase of the push-up. We're not actually doing any pause at the bottom, and we're not doing actually any push phase once you're at the bottom to get back up to the start. And you'll see that in the demonstration video that I give you here and how that works. So we want a very, very controlled down phase that should roughly last around 4 seconds. Once again, you'll notice that every single exercise may be a little bit different depending on the purpose. But in general, you'll notice that the down phase of the movement, or the lowering phase of the movement, however we want to look at it, is normally the most controlled phase because that's where most of our improvements will come from in terms of the muscle tissue being worked. So it's really important that you have some understanding of how that would work. In many cases, in something like the cardiovascular work or even the Program 3, which is purely cardiovascular focus, the goal is speed. So you'll notice that I say things like as quick as possible. So it doesn't matter as much in that circumstance. If you're still a little bit confused or you have any questions, please reach out and I will answer them.